midst of the coronavirus pandemic, it looks like we're finally getting sports back, but at what cost and with what controversy? To discuss, I've got a couple of my friends here hanging out, Effie James and Andy Jardy. Boys, first let's start with the biggest news of the day. Big Ten announces that fall sports probably aren't going to happen for football, at least. The fact that they are singling out this one sport and the fact that it's not going to happen in a sport that generates as much revenue as it does. Effie, initial reactions?
Initially I look at it and, we talked earlier about how I see both ways. I really do. I see what they're trying to get done. I see what the concerns are. But at the same time, I see why we shouldn't do this. So, and I think we're all kind of in this, well, some of us are all in this, split both ways, but you just would hope that they could figure something out with all the resources that a conference like the Big Ten and schools like Ohio State have. You would hope that they could figure something out. But mostly I feel terrible for the athletes. I do. I feel terrible for the athletes. Sports provides an opportunity that a lot of these guys may never get again. And the fact is, everybody thinks, well, if you go big time college, you're going to play pro. Look, there's a very small percentage of young men, even if you see them play every week on television, the overwhelming majority will not get a chance to play pro football. Sure. So this is it for them. And that's why, I feel terrible about it. That's my initial reaction. I just felt terrible in the pit of my stomach for these kids.
It's shocking. I mean, it really is shocking to think that this could very well be a reality, that there is not college football. It was hard enough not having baseball in the spring, not having college football in the fall. Yeah. I mean, what are we going to do on Saturdays? I mean, I know the NFL was talking about maybe playing games on Saturdays to cover up for no college football, but it's just wild. And you kind of felt like this was coming when the MAC came out and said, hey, we're canceling our fall sports until hopefully the spring. The Mountain West Conference came out today as well. They're doing the same thing. I think you're going to see all the non-Power 5 conferences follow suit because they're already losing all the money from those games with the Power 5 schools. They're losing a ton of money by not getting to play those games. So I'm with Effie. There are days where I just can't see how we could possibly even consider playing sports in this. And then there are days where I'm like, it's not going away. We're going to have to try and do this. You talk about feeling bad for the athletes too. I feel bad for the people that just work in sports. So many people, this is their livelihood. And the argument that, we're rooting for this, that people in the media are rooting for sports to not happen, I just don't buy that. So many people, that is their livelihood. For 4 months, I didn't work because there was no baseball. And I lost the NBA as well for my job up in Cleveland. We just got back to work a couple weeks ago. Right. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants this, but I mean, you do run that risk of if we do play and something, God forbid, horrible happens, can we live with that? It's such a very difficult situation and just really kind of sums up 2020.
I think the trickle-down effect is going to not be realized for a few more months. If you take college football away, Ohio State, for example, almost made $60 million last year, just their football program. That funds a lot of different things at that school, sure, including other sports that it pretty much completely pays for. So to take that out of the equation, to also take people like you out of your jobs, I think that there's going to be this big mass effect that we're not aware of now that's going to be very apparent here in a few months. So I read a lot of the tweets from Big Ten athletes today, and what they're saying is kind of what I've been saying all along, is that we're tired of hearing other people tell me what's safe for me to do. I will sign the waiver. Let me have the option if it's safe to come out and play. To that, Effie, you say what?
I say, I get it. I do. I get the kids wanting to play. Of course they want to. But there's a side that sits, as a sports guy, I am like fully on board with what the kids want. I read that tweet from Justin Fields and, I get it. They put in a lot of hard work, but there's a little inkling in me that says, what leadership really is. A lot of times, I remember the days when I first started driving a car, wearing seatbelts wasn't a law. And, it was always there. You always had an option of wearing it, but it wasn't a law. And sometimes leadership is stepping in and saying, you know what, I feel the need to protect yourself from yourself for the greater good. And, now, do I 100% agree with that? In this case, maybe not. But I get why the leadership in the NCAA and even, to some degree in the NFL and all the other sports leagues, I get what they're saying. We know you want to play. And to be honest, you can't tell me that the NCAA doesn't want these kids to play football. But the only thing you could say is they may be being overly cautious. But if you have to call a mother in, if I'm a head coach and I'm being in a coaching position, and I have to call a mother to say, hey, look, your son fell ill, and of course that's a very small chance that would actually happen, especially for younger kids. But your son fell ill and he can't play anymore, or God forbid he passes away. As a coach, I don't want to make that call. So it's very tough. But again, it goes back to me feeling for the kids. Justin Fields, you can feel him in that tweet. That's just something that I would struggle to get past,
That's a tough act to follow up. I think Effie kind of took a lot of what I had to say, because it's just wild. I really can't, and I just like texting people back and forth, and it's like, is this really happening? Are we at this stage? And it's just, I'm okay if we're going to cancel it and we have it in the spring. I feel like maybe that's a very strong possibility. I got to think things are going to be better next year. I hope they're better than what we currently are going through, but just because we cancel it in the fall doesn't necessarily mean we have to cancel it entirely. Try it in the spring. I don't know. Let's see what happens.
I did see that the Big Ten cited that there are studies that are suggesting that there can be heart complications in the future if you get it as a young person, and that they are, like Effie said, maybe protecting them from themselves. However, if you have the option for them to know that up front and then say, do you still want to do this? Playing football is probably a lot more dangerous than coronavirus. Let's just be real. If a bunch of kids are going out there on a Saturday afternoon, there's going to be more injuries, long-term effects than there's going to be from this virus. So I'll just leave it at that. The fact that they're only picking out football and all the other sports are allowed to play, I don't think is fair. You either got to cancel them all or not. That's just my gut and my prerogative if I'm a leader in this situation.
And the one thing I'll say too, Brian, is again, we got to look at the core of this. Like we talked about before, most of the kids are not going to be professional athletes in any sports.
99%.
So now we got to look at it from an academic standpoint. I got kids that cannot walk into a classroom and go to school. We're doing school online. So now we're going to say, well, at a university, you can't come in. We can't gather as a classroom, but you can go and practice every day and play games every week. What message does that send, just strictly from an academic standpoint, which is really the core for 99% of them, is what it's all about anyway. So again, these are the things that, when I think about this whole situation, from a fan's perspective and a sports person's perspective, and I want the kids to play, But when I look at it from an academic perspective, I have a daughter that plays volleyball, and I'm looking at it now. I'm like, well, if she's got to stay home and do school, and then at 3 I got to run her over to the school for practice, something's wrong with that to me, So either we got to figure out we're going to do this thing wholly or not. And somebody said something today that made sense to me. I think it was Dan Orlovsky. He said, where's the leadership? Somebody's got to step up and say, either we're doing it and we'll take the heat, or we're doing it the other way and I'll take the heat, because either way you're going to get heat. But somebody's got to step up and make a full-fledged ruling on this whole thing, and then we can adjust to it. You know what I mean? Maybe we might be able to adjust to it a little better.
Well, yeah, and the leadership thing for sure. I mean, we saw it in March with the conference tournaments. You had teams or conferences canceling it, and then Big East was still playing and only played a half on like the final Saturday of college basketball, because there is no leadership. It's kind of just up to these commissioners of conferences to make their own decisions. It'll be interesting if the Power 5 schools keep playing, how many kids transfer from a Mid-American Conference school, because hey, I want that 1% shot to maybe make it if I'm a highly touted lineman that's playing at Bowling Green or Akron, and got to go transfer to a Big Ten school. That'll be interesting to see.
Yes.
Also be curious how many, unfortunately, college football programs maybe don't survive this. I mean, some MAC schools already have it tough not drawing attendance. And I know if you don't meet the minimum attendance every year, you drop to the FCS. And if you're not making any sort of money, I don't know. There might be some teams that just don't come back from this.
So again, to my greater point of, I don't think we really know the effects of this right now, other than boo-hoo, we don't get football on Saturday afternoon. Guess what? Programs going out of business.
Right.
All
Yeah,
sorts of stuff. You know, the concession stands, the companies that produce that food, there's going to be a lot of things that don't work out in the long run, not having college sports. So it's going to be a big blow.
Absolutely.
As far as high school is concerned, you want to talk about leadership, we still don't know, still waiting on the governor to let us know, are we allowed to play sports? I know that they're out there on the golf course and they can play, and we're hearing that, you know, volleyball and tennis and all these other things, they're cool, but about football, that's where the big holdup is, evidently, considering the ruling today.
Right.
So give me your quick thoughts. Andy, we'll start with you on OHSAA. Friday at 5 p.m. says, guess what? We got this great idea. How about just 6 regular season games? And if you can play in even one, you're getting into our tournament. What say you?
Well, I think we all know where you stand on this issue, Brian. Saw your rant, if you will.
It was definitely a rant.
It was good television.
Oh, thank you.
I just don't know. I go back and forth with this every day. I don't know. I think it's weird that you make the playoffs and then if you get eliminated, you can keep playing. I don't fully understand it. I agree a lot though with what you said about it just kind of being for the money with the OHSAA. Yeah, it's just weird. I mean, everyone, it's totally a free-for-all trying to find, like the team we were talking earlier about Lucas, they're just trying to find teams to play. Nobody will play them in the area.
Correct.
How much can you really travel during all of this and stuff like that?
We're about to find out how many
Yeah.
miles they can put on their cars
Yeah,
and their buses,
it's-
for sure.
And especially for them and for Mansfield Senior with the seasons that they had last year to, you know, your whole off season, you're like, okay, we can't wait to get back out there. And
Yeah.
I think we're happy with any amount of games we get, even if it is going to be different and weird. I think we all just want something.
I think my biggest problem was just the explanation that, hey, you know, we heard that there might be a surge in viruses come wintertime, so we're going to cut the season short by 2 weeks. Thanks so much for following the data and giving us that extra 2 weeks. OHSAA, bravo, great job. And Effie, since you told me off camera you kind of needed this explained to you, the entire reason that they are doing this is because unlike the other sports where some of the regional hosts actually profit off of ticket sales and then maybe even some of the media money, all of the revenue during the tournament time goes to the OHSAA. So by virtue of saying 6 games and then everybody gets into this huge tournament, well then all the media contract money goes to OHSAA, all the host money goes to OHSAA, and that's a way for them, and I understand they're hurting, like they need to recoup funds, period, or that's gonna be another entity that goes out of style, out of business and won't be able to operate anymore. Just be transparent and say, straight up, we need to make some money off of this season. If they would have said that, I would have said, cool, let's go for this playoff thing. I just hated the explanation. Let's assume that we do get high school football, boys. In this area, tell me about some of the teams that maybe you're excited about. Who have you been hearing about? What should we be circling on the calendars? What's some of the games, players, and teams?
I don't mean to be, Captain Obvious, but I will tell you that the run that Mansfield made and Lucas made, and it's not so much about the teams they have coming back. Obviously, they both have tremendous talent coming back. It's about what happens after you have that type of run where the community was changed. Like it was so, electric in this community. How do you follow that up? And I know for a fact that the Tiger spirit was and is now at an all-time high for football, and that's what makes it so disheartening. This is happening, but I really feel I'm so interested to see how the Tigers and the Cubs come back from the seasons that they had, and frankly, Lucas in basketball and football, to see how they come back and they have the follow-up season to the season that they had the previous year, because that's the type of year that builds your program and could catapult you to a whole nother level. So I'm really interested to see how those two teams respond to the seasons they had last year.
Yeah, I would second that. I think Lucas and Mansfield Senior, after the historic years they had last year, what do you do for an encore?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest question. Now you've got the targets on your back. Teams are looking forward to playing you maybe even more so than they were before because they know what kind of success you had last year. So those would be my two. And then a team kind of off the radar, you and I talked about them earlier, Hillsdale. They get in the playoffs every year. And
They have been, yeah.
Yeah, they're a solid team over there. So they're a team I'll throw out there for you.
Yeah, there's quite a few teams here in this area that I'm really intrigued by. I think the Shelby Whippets actually is the #1 in my book. I want to see what this new quarterback can step in and do. I've been hearing about him since he was a little kid, this Marshall Shepard.
Yes.
So he's just the next dude in line out there. Robert Mahaney is the guy for the job. I think Shelby's probably going to be the best team in the area if they get to play football. And then I also got to go see those Clear Fork Colts in person over there, and just something about that culture too. I can tell they're going to be tough, but they're fast. They got so many fast kids right now. The Coach Carroll was telling me, I don't even know what to do with all these young, fast kids. I think that's a pretty good impression too, Coach. They got a lot of speed out there in the Valley, so I would look for those two from Richland County. And how about Chris Miller in his third year? Like, kind of put up or shut up type deal. Like, are you finally going to start collecting wins? Now you got your guys. It's running your programming type of thing. So I want to see what they do as well. Those three are probably the most intriguing, aside from the storylines that you guys mentioned. Any last words, I guess, before we get out of here and go home?
I want to mention one other thing about the high school season. I like what you said about Chris Miller because I think I agree with that. I think I'm glad that he has the opportunity now to, sometimes you need time to build your program, and so it'd be interesting to see how he does. But also, I'm interested to see the quarterback situations at Mansfield and Lucas. They've got to replace some major leadership. When you talk about Cam and you talk about Logan Nicewander, that's major leadership holes. Beyond what they did on the field, both of those schools have to replace huge leaders. So I'm really interested to see how the quarterback play is going to be for those two schools.
If we have football, I'm curious to see how teams manage, COVID protocol, if you will. I mean, I know we're jumping to the professional level, but Zach Plesac for the Indians, they find out he goes out and they send him away from the team for 3 days. Is that going to happen at the high school level? If a kid goes out on Friday night, is he away from the team for a week? That'll be interesting to see. Whichever team can kind of navigate through it and keep everybody healthy is probably going to make a run.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, all I know is everyone's getting into the playoffs, so you just got to show
Let's
up
go.
at some point.
Let's go.
And you are getting in there. And so excited for all that we have coming your way on OH Report this year. We're going to have, hopefully, live broadcasts of 6 football games every single Friday night free to you guys, virtue of sponsors and then the teams as well, right here on the OH Report. Effie's going to be a commentator, as is Andy. So welcome to the team.
Why, thank you.
So happy to have you over here.
Very happy to be with you.
And we are happy to bring you football if we get it. So just keep our fingers crossed if it's in the right time and place for the kids and they can do it safely. We hope we get to see you. For now, we out.